All right, so what he's doing, there are 2 water glasses in every single steam locomotive, and they tell you where the water level is in the boiler. Every morning, we do a blowdown of those glasses. We'll check, and what he's doing, he's isolating both valves. There's 2 valves, one on the steam side and one on the water side. And you're basically making sure that they're both clear. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with the Gettysburg Railroad. They had a boiler explosion 25 years ago, and it nearly ended steam tourism in this country. And actually, the FRA worked with this railroad to create the new rules that we have in place now for steam locomotive safety. We are in compliance with the FRA, just like they are. So every 31 days, we go through an inspection. So every 31 days, we go through an inspection, and one of the things that we inspect on steam locomotives are the water glass valves. They were signing off on that, saying that they did it, and they did it. So what happened, it got filled with scale. So when they took the valves out, they were inspected, they were clogged up all the way. So it isolated the water from the boiler. They thought they had a water level, and they did it. So the water level was down here, and the glass was saying was up here. So the ground sheet got exposed, and you're breaking stuff already. This is why we can't have nice things. Anyways, so that's the importance of doing these inspections on these locomotives. I mean, these are essentially bombs on wheels. They're pressure vessels, and they put them on wheels and send them down the track.
The only thing that's missing is the work that you have underneath.
What's that?
The only thing that they're missing from the closing is work underneath.
Yes, absolutely.
But luckily, with the close,
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. So, he's checking now, he's checking the other side. So that's one of the first things we do every single morning. Because not only you're checking that it's clear, but when you close the drain, the water should come up rather quickly. If it comes up real slow or doesn't come up at all, there's a problem. And then we have to address it. Because you have to know where your water level is on a steam locomotive. You have to remember, when these are going down the tracks, the terrain's going up and down. Well, what happens with the water in there? It goes this way, goes that way, and you have to have this firebox completely covered in water at all times. So you have to know, when you're being trained as a fireman, you have to know the particular line you're on to know where your water level is going to be. Do any of you want to go up in the cab? Because I would like to show you the bank so you can see what it looks like before they break it apart. Anyone interested? Hands? Hands? All right, hands are going to get dirty. Okay with that? All right, let's go on up here. Paul, I'm bringing you a crowd. All right, grab both handrails.
Want that ethnic people.
Yeah. Actually, I'm gonna. I'll close
where's
the map.
Seat behind you. Oh yeah, cool.
Paul, what are you doing next?
I'm gonna start getting the air pump oil.
Okay, just go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
Because I'll show them. Because just watch you pour oil is not very exciting.
Yeah.
No offense. I mean, you do a fantastic job. But,
Squeeze it and we're trying to get
This end of the day is still pouring oil.
yeah.
I've never been this hot.
All right.
I just get out of here.
All right. So this is 90s cab, obviously. Now these are the water glasses that he was blown out. Now you can see these are prison glasses, so you can see the water level. You see it bobbing up and down right there. So watch when I open the drain. Watch how quickly it comes back up. See that? See how quickly it bobs back up? That's what you want to see. So that's what he was checking. Now, this is obviously the firebox where the fire is. And overnight on these hot engines, what we do to keep some pressure in it is we put literally a huge bank of coal in it. Okay? Like 45 to 50 scoops. And we put them in the back half in the center. This engine operates at 200 pounds of pressure per square inch.
Wow.
All right, so you can see it does hold some pressure in it, and you need at least 50 pounds to be able to move this engine under its own power. So as you can see, we have more than enough pressure. So that's what it looks like. You see that? Now what that bank of coal does overnight is that it cokes over. And that is beautiful stuff right there, because what we do with that is all around it, you see all this dead ash. Okay, so what you're gonna see him do, he's gonna dump all that dead ash out and just leave this hot bank in place. Then what he'll do, he'll take what's called a slash bar and break that apart, start spreading that out, and start throwing some fresh coal on to get your fire bed ready for that day's work. This is how they did it back in the days of steam. Different railroads had different philosophies as far as where they put their bank in. Some would put it against the sheets. Strasburg Railroad, we are against that philosophy. We believe it overheats the sheets, because if you have a bank of coal just sitting against a sheet here, it's overheating this sheet, and that sheet over there isn't getting the same kind of heat, so they can warp. And that's been our philosophy here. That's why we do it this way. And this, on a hot day, absolutely beats you up. I mean,
Yeah, 90 degrees weather, you're just gonna wish that you didn't even become one.
you have no idea, you know. And me being from Southern California, I'm still not used to the humidity. You know, I don't think I ever will be.
You gotta be from California to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Florida.
So that's what Paul's going to do when you see him breaking the fire apart. So that's what every steam locomotive pretty much goes through, especially our engines here, when we are setting it up for that day's work. Now, you have your oil tray here, and we basically carry two types of oil on the steam engine. Obviously, we have a tallow pot and we have a squirt can, and that's to some reservoirs consume more oil, some reservoirs are hard to get to, or just have an oil hole. So that's why you have the two different types of oil cans for each. The black ones are steam oil, which are very heavyweight oil. It's like 300 compared to a motor oil. And this is PB&J. It's not peanut butter and jelly.
We all know
It
that.
stands for pin, bearing, and journal. It's a great oil, and it's about 150 weight oil that we use for the crank pins. I'll show you what we use that for too. There are essentially three oils that we use on a steam locomotive. Use air oil for all the air operated equipment, steam oil for all the components that are going to be exposed to steam, and the pin, bearing, and journal oil for, you guessed it, pin, bearing, and journal stuff. On top of all that, we also have a moly grease that we use. We have some button fittings that we use moly grease to lubricate the hub liners, and you'll see him do that. I'll show you what all that's about. And 475 over there has Baker valve gear. Baker valve gear has so many pivot points, you think you're spending half your life moly greasing that thing. And you are a saint if you walk out of there with no moly grease on you. I don't know a single person who's been able to do it. So.
Unless you're a god. Then.
Exactly. I after I'm done with it, it looks like I rolled in the coal pile with this stuff.
Just looks like you took a dip in the coal.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, just so you guys are familiar with the controls of the engine, so it takes two people to run these things on a steam locomotive. You have the engineer over here where Al's sitting. We're like best friends now. and we have the fireman that sits over here, although if he's doing his job, he's not sitting, he's standing shoveling coal.
Yeah.
As you can see, there's a lot more controls on the engineer's side than there are on the fireman's side. That's because the fireman's main control and tool is the scoop. 90% of his time is attending that fire, and the fireman basically has one control that he really works with, and that's the blower. Now, are you guys all familiar with what the blower does? So for those of you that don't, just like any fire that's burning wood, coal, you name it, you need a draft to produce the heat and to introduce the oxygen to help it burn. When a steam locomotive is standing still, there's nothing that's creating a draft for that coal to burn, and it's just going to die out. Welcome the blower. That's what this does. There's a pipe that goes from this all the way to the front into the smoke box, and in the smoke box there's what's called a blower ring, and it goes around the exhaust nozzle. The exhaust nozzle is the nozzle where the steam shoots out of the cylinders out the stack and makes a chuffing sound, and that creates a draft. So anytime the engine's working, chuff, 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 that's creating the draft. The harder it works, the harder it drafts. The harder it drafts, the hotter that fire burns. So everything is in perfect harmony. When you're not working, you're at a station, you need this blower to produce enough of a draft to keep this fire burning. If you don't have this blower, what happens is not only does it not burn, all the smoke starts coming back out the cab, and
now you're coughing up a storm.
And now you're coughing up a storm, you know. So That's what this valve is here. This is really neat over here. Not every railroad had this, but they're fantastic tools. This is what's called a surface blowdown, or at least the valve handles to the surface blowdown. You'll notice on the outside of the engine here, there's some, it looks like a Dutch oven. And they have a little bit of steam coming out of it. Obviously it's not on right now, you'll see it in a little bit. And if you look at our tracks at the Strasburg Railroad, you'll see this clean line down the center of the rail. That's because of this thing. It shoots, basically what it does, there's a pipe right here that goes across the top of the crown sheet and skims the surface of the water for all the impurities. Kind of like, it helps clean the water. And then it shoots all the water down on all the dirty water and all the scum down onto the ground. That's why you'll see that clean line, because it's essentially steam cleaning the tracks as it goes down the line. Very useful tool. And then you have your water glass here that tells you where your water level is. You have your steam gauge here that tells you where your pressure is. So what the fireman's doing is, you know, he's looking at his stack to see his smoke. He's looking at the steam gauge, he's looking at his fire, he's looking at his water level, and he's looking at what the engineer's doing. And all of these things are constantly changing. And as they're changing, he's making adjustments. On this side over here, Al, let's switch places for a second. So this side over here is where the engineer sits. And these are the engineer's controls right here. This is the throttle. So as you open up this valve right here, it introduces the steam into the cylinders. This valve right here, this is the reverser, the power reverse. This controls how much of that steam is being used in the cylinders, okay? It's kind of like the gear shift of your car, like a manual transmission, if you will. When you first start your car, you start it in first gear. If you started in fourth, you wouldn't go anywhere. Same thing with this. You're starting a heavy train, you want the maximum amount of power to those cylinders as you possibly can. As you're picking up speed and the momentum and the inertia is helping you, you don't need as much steam, and you can use the expansive power of the steam to your benefit. So the farther you hook it up, the less steam is being admitted to the cylinder, and the more of the expansive properties of that steam is being used against the cylinders. Does that make sense? We have two brake valves. This is what's called a 6ET brake valve system invented by George Westinghouse, an absolute genius. This is the automatic brake valve. This controls the brakes on the train and the engine. And this is the independent brake valve that controls the brakes just on the engine. When you're running a steam locomotive, you never control the brakes, the train with your engine brakes. The reason why is how the tires are put on. Do any of you have any idea of how the tires are put on? Do you know, Al?
I do, but let somebody else
Okay,
figure it out.
all right. So, what we do to put the tires on, this is like back in the days of steam, there's a ring of fire we put around the tire, okay? Because the tire is steel. You got the wheel center with the spokes, and you got the tire on the outside, and I'll show you the difference. You heat them up. So you hit them for about 15 minutes, and then you're able to knock the tire off with 2 sledgehammers. Well, what happens if you hold a train with the independent brake for a long period of time? It's going to create friction, a lot of friction, and enough heat that it could actually loosen that tire and actually pop it off the wheel. That's because they're not bolted on, they're not welded on, they're shrink fit on. So they're heated, they expand, and they're actually machined just a couple thousand different smaller. Then they're put onto place, clamped in, and then they're shrunk as it cools, and they're actually squeezed and shrunk on. That's how they stay on. That's why you control your train with your train brakes on a steam locomotive. Diesels are different. They actually have what's called dynamic braking. And they actually can use the traction motors to actually slow the train down and reverse the polarity of it. So it's an interesting thing. I don't think it's as cool as this, because this is just more your input as the engineer. I mean, running a steam locomotive and firing a steam locomotive takes years to really perfect, because the art and the skill in this is something that I absolutely love. I mean, a lot of people don't really appreciate what it takes to fire these things, especially when I was having students and they were doing those throttle time experiences, and we had some students. I think, Al, when are you doing it? You're doing it Sunday, aren't you? Sunday.
I'll be firing most of the day.
Yeah, see, and he's a smart one, because we were talking about this. I think the true art, anyone can run it. I can teach you how to run this real quick. You know, open this and train goes. But to learn how to fire and keep the pressure up and keep everything in harmony takes a long time to master, because you can actually push your fire out if you throw coal in there in the wrong spot. You can actually make a lot of smoke and no heat. You know, so you have to know how to read your fire and all that kind of good stuff. Do any of you have any questions for me so far? I will go on and on and on. Yes, sir.
Didn't 90 have like a throttle problem a little while ago?
It still has it. The problem that 90 has with its throttle, it has a little hitch in it. Okay, so when you go to open it up, right where the thimble lifts off the seat, you can feel a little hitch. You got to kind of get over that hitch to kind of get it to move. The problem we had with it a couple weeks ago, there's packing in here. This is the stuffing box, and this is the packing gland right here. This is the box, this is the gland, and you can see a little bit of the packing, the white stuff on the edge here. So we repacked this a couple weeks ago. They gave us the wrong stuff.
Wow.
It couldn't handle the steam. So what ended up happening, in a matter of days, it basically melted to nothing. Well, now there's nothing holding that steam pressure back, so you open up the throttle, you got steam shooting out a little bit. So before it became a problem and really bad, we just took the engine out of service and put 475 in service and got the appropriate stuff, reprimanded the company for sending us the wrong stuff, and put the right stuff in, and it's been happy ever since. So
The train has feelings.
it does, it does,
Once.
and it's happy now. So there you go. And a couple of the little things that you're looking at here, just so you know. These are the gauge cocks. This was the initial way to tell the water level in the boiler. It's a very primitive way of telling the water level in the boiler. What it does is, you open this up, you're either going to see water or steam come out of this drain here. And you open this up, you'll see either water or steam. So I'll open this one up. Let's say I open this one up, I see water. I open this one up, I see water. I open this one up and I see steam. Well, then that tells me between these two is the water level, somewhere between these two. But you have no idea exactly where that is. That's why these glasses were invented. They're a much more accurate way of seeing exactly what's going on with your water level. Not to mention, they're actually not very accurate because there's an interesting phenomenon that happens when you're working steam. On these boilers with the back head at a slight angle like this, when you're working steam, it actually creates this false head of water that will surge up in the back. Now these are usually tapped into the boiler, but you can see these are tapped onto a column. That column is to help make these more accurate to avoid that problem. So now you're getting a more accurate reading with these. So this is modern technology in the 20s, if you will. This is your bell valve right here, so the fireman doesn't have to yank on the cord all day long. And this is your sanding valve right here. Remember I was showing you guys that sander.
Yeah.
All the way forward is for the front sander, all the way back is for the rear sander. And it puts out this real loud warning sound to let you know that you're putting sand down. Because if you didn't know it,
It'd be sanded.
you'd have Ocean City down there, you know, and trying to avoid that, you know. But anyways, these are your brake gauges right here. So you have your equalizing reservoir, your main reservoir, your brake cylinder, and your brake pipe. The red handle, the brake cylinder, is essentially your independent brakes. That's what this is. The black one is basically the brake pipe that goes down the length of the train. Your main reservoir, those big tanks on either side, that tells you how much pressure is in those tanks. And the equalizing reservoir is for the engineer when he's taking a reduction of air, because that's the interesting thing about the brakes. The automatic brake system, it's an interesting invention. In the early days, it was straight air. So you put air in to push the cylinders and put the brakes on. But if the train broke apart, you got a runaway train.
Yep.
So George Westinghouse, the genius that he is, he said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put the air pressure in the line to keep the brakes off. And then in order to apply the brakes, you have to reduce the air pressure. That way, if the train broke apart, all of a sudden all the air would dump out and the brakes would come on. So the equalizing reservoir is basically, or the needle here, is basically a way for the engineer to determine how much air he wants to reduce. Because if you had a really long train and you just looked at your brake pipe here, well, it takes forever to go down the line of the train. So the equalizing reservoir gauge gives an engineer a quick way to see, oh, I just want 10 pounds, good, done. And then it would take 5 minutes for that thing to actually equalize out to 10 pounds. So that's what these gauges do over here. I know it's a lot of information, but it's a lot of stuff. What can I tell you?
And the most funnest part is above you.
Yeah, of course. Don't worry. I'll give you. You'll get a chance. You guys will all
here.
get a chance. Don't you worry.
Wait,
Take you up there.
now,
Do you guys have any questions for me up here? Yes, sir.
One more.
Yes, sir.
So we've been seeing 89 running in a while because I watched the live cam. Is there something wrong with 89?
Of course not. Not at all. 89 is in great shape. I have her on reserve over there. In fact, we had to use her a couple of weeks ago because 90 was out because of the throttle problem. And I actually got to run it, which is really fun because it's a really heavy train for that engine. And actually, interesting story about that. So 90 is such a powerful engine. You can never run this engine wide open here, meaning the throttle wide open all the way out. It's way too powerful for this line. 475 and 89, we actually run the throttles wide open here on the way back and just run it from the reverser. This is the most efficient way to run a steam locomotive because you're getting the maximum amount of power to the cylinders, and you're basically adjusting it with your reverser to get the maximum efficiency. They basically call it the company notch back in the day. You know, the most economical way of running steam, so you're conserving water, which you're conserving fuel, and the company's happy that way. So 89, we were taking that out, and it was a Sunday, and they were doing the throttle experience, and the engineer of the other train was calling me, and I couldn't understand what he was saying. We had a problem with the radio. Well, our rule books here say we have to stop the train if we don't understand the transmission. Well, I had to stop 89 with about a 10-car train on the steepest part of the hill at Lemon Place, and I'm like, well, we're in trouble now. I'm going to have to back this thing up and, get another running start at the hill. But I was smart enough to put sand down on the rail before I came to a stop, And that thing has got really big cylinders. If you look at it, go take a look at the pistons. They're huge on that thing. Let me tell you, when you start that train with a heavy train with that thing, you can actually feel the flame flexing. That's not a good thing. That's how much power is on that thing. That's why we don't like to really work it that hard, because it's an older engine, and when you're working those cylinders, it's actually stretching and bending that frame. Well, the more you bend it, the more stress you're putting on it, and the more wear you're putting on it. So that is a very long answer to your very quick question. All right, tell you what, you guys, let's go down on the ground. I can show you what Paul is doing. Now, when you go down, face the engine, just like you got on the engine. Grab both handrails and face on down.
Now, does the fireman side injector wear out faster than the
Yes,
other side?
definitely does. Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, we go through more cones and nozzles on that side. That's why at the end of the day, we'll run this one. So part of the reason why they're doing this, they're setting the injectors and making sure the injectors work. This is a safety protocol. You want to do this before you do your blowdown. So the next step they're going to do after this is they're going to go down the track, blow the engine down. So basically what that is, this is called the mud ring here. Where all these rivets are around here, this is the mud ring. Because all the mud and all the sediment settles down there. This valve right here in the center right here, this is the blowdown valve. It's tapped into a low point. The reason for that is, when you open it up, it takes out all of that scale, all of that mud, and all of that sediment, and throws it out onto the ground. Strasburg Railroad, we tapped it between the gauge and onto the ground. Most steam locomotives and most railroads, it's actually tapped on the side and shoots out this way. Being the popular tourist destination that we are, and the way that we operate, we are able to just blow down on this pad and use the surface blowdowns throughout the day. And that works out very well over here for us. Scale is always good, our tedious levels are always good, so we're really happy about that. Now, this is what happens. See, we make a lot of money here, as you can see. We have a pipe and a hose that is squirting all over Mr. Paul over here. So we obviously need a new hose. This poor man is dealing with faulty equipment.
The equipment lied to him.
Yeah. Top rated stuff right here, let me tell you, gentlemen. Top rated stuff. So we'll let that soak for a little bit. Then they'll dump it all out, clean out the hoppers. Then the fire's completely cleaned out. Once this process is done, your fire's completely cleaned out, and you just maintain anything that you see with your fire up on top, take it down there, and blow it down. And then basically the hostling's done after that. Now, do any of you guys want to go in the cab when we take it up the hill? Raise of the hands. Who wants to go in the cab? Al? You want to go?
I'll save some space.
Okay, all right. So okay. Well, what we'll do then?
Okay, fine. Wait,
What we'll do then for those
did
of
you
you?
say we get to go in the cabin while it's running?
Yeah.
Okay, that's why not?
How are you gonna blow the whistle? Right? You want to go?
Sure.
You, Al, you. Are you going? Okay, you.
I can wait if it's safer.
If there's room, I'll tell you what. There's room. We'll take you up. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I'm not a vice person, so this is going to be fun again.
Didn't change.
It's colder! It's colder! Get colder! The engine did go. Come on.
So once we call it down, then I'll have you guys all go up into the cab and we'll go up in there. Okay?
Yay.
All right. Sounds good.
Yeah.
So these are the overfire tubes that you're seeing. The overfire tubes help introduce oxygen, which helps with the combustion. It's a pretty neat way to see inside the fire. 89 is even better because it's lower. You can like right at the station, you can see inside there. You see all the water falling out of the bottom as it's slowing down. It'll just sit out to the bottom. The handle to operate it. Oh, you guys do me a favor. Stay out of the gate. It just makes me nervous.
And down slow. For him, yes.
There you go. Put all the ash. Get the hoppers clean for the day. If you don't do this, see how they're filled up over here? Well, guess what can't get through? Air. So your fire just gets choked out, and it won't burn. So just push all this stuff down, get it all cleaned out.
There's some.
So Paul just removed the blue flag over there. For those of you that don't know, a blue flag is a railroad stop sign. The simplest way to describe it. It basically tells people that there are people working in, on, or around the equipment and they cannot come up and couple to it. It's a safe zone. So basically, this is a zone that it cannot be occupied unless that blue flag is taken down. Only the person who's inside the blue flag can take it down. Paul has the authority and the magic fingers to be able to take that thing down.
It's like Thor with the hammer.
Exactly. This is the part that my OCD drives me nuts. Because I have to get every speck of ash and dust, and it's a nightmare for me. A normal human being like Paul can just go like this and walk away. Not me. I'll spend 6 nights over here trying to get every single piece on. You guys, are you okay if
Yeah, just watch out for me.
Okay, all right.
Still sitting there across the
What I'll do then,
How that is.
I'll put it up,
Yeah.
and then I'll bring it down for you guys.
I'm not sure if we need it or not. We may, but I don't know.
Okay.
If we need it, I can get it back down, I guess.
The challenge with having 2 people do this is that this is not a water balloon fight. They're not doing this on purpose. It's just the nature of the pan. It hits these nuts that are on there and just sprays the water out. You're trying to avoid it as much as you can, but it happens.
recently did a boil wash with a couple washout plugs.
Yeah. We just got this one out of a 31-day inspection. It's a very good eye. So Al was noticing that the washout plug here looks fairly clean with new ring on it. A washout plug is exactly what it sounds like. It's a plug that you take out to allow yourself to wash out the boiler. Because in 31 days, a lot of scale accumulates in there. You have to be able to get all that stuff out of there. That's what these washout plugs do. And you'll notice they're at every single corner of the mud ring. They're on every corner. And we have 4 right over here in front of the arch tube. I'll show you guys inside the firebox. There's these arch tubes that go from the front of the firebox to the back. And they aid in circulation and in heat. What happens is the water at the bottom is cool. The water at the top is hot. Cold water goes in, comes up the top. It boils rather rapidly in those tubes, sucks in the cold water at the bottom, so it creates this massive circulation, just kind of mixing the water. And then on top of those tubes where you have your fire brick. And that fire brick, you need that brick there for a couple of reasons. Number one, it aids in combustion. It forces the fire to go along the back and then curl over and then out the tube. So it burns more completely. It also protects the tube sheet from the fire. And it also helps in lighting the fresh coal you put in there because that brick holds a lot of radiant heat. And when you throw fresh coal in there, that radiant heat comes down and helps light off and burn that coal. So it does several things. And you and I were talking about this the other day, in fact. When you look at the brick, you'll see that it's dished out on the bottom. It's not smooth. That's on purpose. What it does, it creates turbulence with the mixing of the gases. So it basically slows down the travel of the gases to mix with the air and further burn. As I'm getting doused in water. Explaining this to you. Shame on you. We usually have good help. I don't know what's happening. Now this is a fine young man over here. See what he's doing? He's cleaning the ash off all the brake beam levers and all that to keep everything nice and clean. This is a respectable engineman here who cares about his engine. I make a joke, but on a serious note, it takes a lot of pride. What we get, we are very lucky, very fortunate to do what we do. That you guys get to experience this and that we get to operate this equipment. You know, this equipment is very few of us in the world get to do this.
I think we're pretty good.
So the guys over here take a lot of pride in keeping these engines clean. Now that's a rather silly point. Keeping a coal-fired steam locomotive clean is kind of an oxymoron. You do the best you can with what you got. The worst thing you can do with a coal-fired steam engine is paint it light blue.
Well, that's what you did with Tom.
Exactly. Because we are a glutton for punishment. That engine actually used to be an oil burner. And oil burners burn much cleaner. If it was up to me, I'd turn it right back to oil. Let's clean it on that thing. Easier to fire. Oh my gosh, yeah. Yeah, the physical fog. That engine's rough. You love it. I do. Well, are you guys done?
Yeah, roughly enough.
Yeah, who assigned the numbers to these trains, like 90 and 89?
The railroad. The railroad. So this came from Great Western. Yeah. And Great Western assigned it this number in conjunction with Baldwin who built the engine. Same with 89. That actually went through a couple of different numbers. I believe when it was Grand Trunk Railway, it was numbered 911. And then went back to 89. Do you know any more details about that, Paul, as far as 89's numbering?
Yeah, I think he was building something else. I think it was in like the 1000.
Right.
and it was built, and
It went to different railroads.
yeah, I think the 1000 series, I don't know what the last page is, it was 10 something on the Grand Trunk, and I think Canadian National changed it to 911 and then later to 89.
Yeah. So the railroads basically changed their roster. Like, you know, 844, Union Pacific Railroad. They're the only railroad that has a steam locomotive that's never been out of service. It's actually the same company that built this engine that has this engine. That engine was originally numbered 844 and then was
No,
renumbered
that
to 844, 8444, and then back to 844. The reason for that was there was a diesel that had the same number on the roster. So to get confusion out, they changed the numbering. So that's what happened to that. Yes, sir.
Why did they choose these names for the train? Like, where did these names come from? Like, where did these numbers come from?
Oh, that's what he was just asking. So the numbers come from the railroad.
Yeah, but how do they choose it? That's what I'm asking. Like, well, say 90, they could have chosen like one.
You know what? That's a question that I can't answer. And the reason why I can't answer is because I'm not them.
Yeah, I got you now.
Because they have any number of reasons why they choose a number. You know, why do you choose a blue shirt? You know,
That's what your mind was.
Their numbering. Every single railroad had a system and a classification based off their photographs. What's that?
We're going to go back again.
Okay. This guy's going to go back again. That's what he said. All right. So they're going to go back. See that pad over there? This is the final step of the hostling process. This is known as the blowdown.
Oh no.
So, this is rather loud and steamy, which is why I have you guys back here. The handle is on the fireman's side. Eric is going to come out, pull that handle. It's going to open up the blowdown valve, and this thing is going to be enveloped in steam. And what he's doing is, he's essentially blowing out all the mud, the scale, the sediment that has accumulated to the bottom of the boiler. Do it a few times. Let me get out of the way. And on average, we'll do about 3 of them, and that depends on how full the boiler is with water. If the boiler is very full with water, they'll do a few more to bring the water level down to a workable level. No. And part of the reason why he's waiting is to wait for everything to equalize out, wait for everything to settle, then we'll do the whole thing again. What's behind it? Or the dome itself? Sand. Steam. That's the steam dome. So that's where the throttle is. The dome behind is the actual steam dome. So you open the throttle, the thimble is in there. You open the handle, you lift the thimble, and push the steam into the throttle. So it'll always be the highest point of the boiler, because that's where the driest and hottest steam is. Yeah, that one. Let me go check with the crew here. Alright, for those of you that are not, those of you guys that are not having enough, maybe it's favors,
What are you guys doing?
Good.
How are you?
Good.
All right, you guys, so you saw what the fire looked like before, right?
Yeah.
So here's what it looks like now.
Oh.
See that? See how flat that is? How level it is? How evened out it is? It's got a little bit of a heel in the back here because we happen to know 90 likes a heel.
She is a lady.
Oh yeah.
A little warm.
A little. Joking. That's hot.
It gets hotter as it climbs up the hill.
Oh yeah.
What can we hold on to?
You can hold on to this. In fact, I'll put the chain here.
And to be honest, I'm a little
You can
scared.
hold on to this handle right there.
Nothing's gonna hurt.
You can hold on to that.
That can hurt you.
No, well, you're not going to go in there.
Don't go in there.
All right. What's that?
You all right?
Are you kidding? No, you run it.
He's the engineer.
But this young man, they have to blow the whistle. So we're gonna go in reverse. Do you know how many whistle signals that is?
Reverse. I think it's
Close. One more.
3.
3 to go in reverse. So I'll tell you what. I want you to go over there. I want. Go 3 of them. Real good. 1, 2, 3. Oh, is it close?
I'm trying to hear the whistle. I don't know. I really know.
The valve's on. Look at the valve. All right, try it again.
Try it again. Is it better?
It'll work now.
Doesn't get,
Yeah, it works. Go ahead.
Harder.
on a second. Hold on. Come up here.
Yeah.
Come up here. Walk up here. Grab the front part. I'll try it. There you go.
Never thought I would do that in
All
my
right.
lifetime.
Now
but
what's
yeah.
I wanted to do that my whole life.
He's going to take the reverser. He's going to put it in reverse. So now we're going to go reverse.
What do I do with the
Okay.
brake?
He's going to release the brakes.
All right.
Yep.
Here we go.
What does that lever do?
That's the overflow. Remember how the water was coming out of the bottom? That's what that valve does. That makes the water come out the bottom.
Oh, geez. This is weird standing up. Oh, wow. Smells pretty hot. Very tantalizing. Oh, there's the fuel valve.
Yep. Okay, so the reason why we do this is to blow out the tubes, the front end, all the gunk that's been sitting there overnight. This is going to clean everything out. It's going to clean up this fire. It's going to clean out the
There's
tubes,
the pump.
front end, and just blow it all the stack.
Oh, you good?
Wow.
We're going pretty fast.
Oh, dear. How much is the car?
My hands are sweaty. That's not good.
You're fine.
Do you guys ever whistle with the farmers?
Yes.
This is amazing. Like you actually get to be in the train. And I thought
Oh, yeah.
I thought I had to be 18 to do this.
Oh, yeah, seriously. It's kind of weird.
I'm kind of afraid to open the firebox. Because you said it gets hotter when you
Oh, it gets hot all right. All right, so now he brings it to a nice stop. Now he's going to put the reverser forward.
And then some.
And now you can go forward. Now, 2 for 4. You're right about that. So, give us 2 for forward.
2 longs.
2 shorts.
shorts.
There you go. Now, do you know what it is for a crossing? 2 medium, 1 short, 1 long. All right?
Wait, did we go over a crossing?
No, but I'm just getting him prepped.
Oh. Oh no, we're going over a crossing.
We're crossing by the end of the channel. Stack them.
What you guys think that's cheaper?
I think it's down to 15 before you get to it.
I'm guessing that's the emergency.
The emergency is all the way over. This is for the train. So we don't have a train. That's why he's not using it.
Your medium, short, long.
Yep. All right, come over here.
Oh, dear.
All right, step up here.
Y'all did a good job. I like your.
Thank you.
That's real strong. Yeah.
I did it too. I did. I
Wow, tried like Jingle Bells.
did really good.
I actually saw you guys do a little skunk in the barnyard with
Yeah.
the sold yesterday. That was pretty
Yeah,
funny.
I was so embarrassed. I'm like, I hate myself for doing it, but I did it.
I was in the parlor car and I just.
Oh,
got it
were
on
you
video.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
I was
hilarious.
in the president's car before. And then
That's
I
a
did
nice
the
car.
driver's
I
car.
like that car.
It is really nice.
Beautiful.
Never ridden in
Can I
that
watch
before.
try and play Jingle Bells?
Last time I was here, I remember when we were going over there to unhook and then go back.
Yeah.
An Amtrak train blew right
Oh,
by.
yeah.
All right, then what he's going to do, he's going to put it in center. He's going to put this in hold. And now he's got everything set and he'll pin this, but since I'm here, I'm going to do it for him.
Engine house SRC 90, radio check over.
And now he gets a radio check to make sure the radio works.
SRC 90 has the engine house loud and clear on.
Roger, loud and clear as well, house out.
That terrified me when it first did. I did not think this whistle was going to be that.
Your safety's going to go off pretty soon. All right, you guys have any questions? Want to see the fire one last time? Take some pictures? All right. Al, you want to step on that for me? Hold that down. Got it? Yep. All right. Al, you want to take some pictures or are you good?
I got
You're
some
good? Okay. All right.
down in Florida.
Yep.
And this is October, not October.
You guys see the bricks he was talking about?
Oh, wow.
They're
Look
up
at
the
that.
top of the ship, at the top of the firebox.
Dude, that goes out.
Oh, wow.
It's like a big brick-fired pizza. That's a heck of a pizza, let me tell you. That's the biggest spicy pizza.
The big spicy pizza, but you put it in there for the recommended time it's going to be on fire.
You know it.
It'll be creamy.
All right,
Am I allowed
We'll
to do
come-
a quick short for my dad?
a short one for your dad. Well, I'm sure, yes, we can do that for your dad.
Thank you.
Dad, you want me to blow the whistle? Tell you what, why don't you come around this side, Dad, and we'll get a good picture of it.
That's his name now.